Hey, Carlos Lago with Edmunds here, and that is the hotly anticipated 2021 Ford Bronco. We finally get to drive it. We already know all the specs, we know all about its purported off-road capability, and finally we get to see what it's like in the real world. Before we do, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you like videos like this one. Also, be sure to visit edmunds.com/sellmycar to get an instant cash offer on the car you're trying to sell. Now's a great time to do it. First, a quick reminder, when we're talking about the Bronco, we're talking about this. We are not talking about that. That's the Bronco Sport. It's a smaller, less capable compact SUV that's aimed more at the types, the roles filled by like the Jeep Cherokee or the Subaru Outback. When we talk about the Bronco, we mean this, which is a, again, super highly capable 4x4 off-road enthusiast machine that targets the space that's occupied currently by the Jeep Wrangler. Now, like the Wrangler, you can get the Bronco with either 2 doors or 4 doors with a bunch of off-road features, and also like the Wrangler, this has a pretty broad price range of somewhere between $30,000 to $60,000. But I'm gonna shut up now because I wanna drive this thing. Let's go. So we are in a Bronco Black Diamond, which is among the lower rung of the entire Bronco trim levels, but it does have some off-road features on it. And the reason why we're gonna start driving on-road first is because this is generally the area where more off-road oriented vehicles falter, like the Bronco's main competitor, the Jeep Wrangler. So this particular Black Diamond has the turbocharged 4-cylinder engine with 300 horsepower or thereabouts. This doesn't have the V6, which is okay, because we'll drive that later. And we also have a 7-speed manual transmission. What's unique about the 7-speed is first gear is actually technically a crawler gear, which is a super low ratio, but we'll explore that more. What I'm more interested though to find out now is how this particular Bronco will fare in stop and go Austin traffic, because let's face it, if you want to go off-roading on a trail, you're probably going to have to drive there and then drive back home when you're done. So arguably the on-road drivability is just as important, if not more important, than off-road capability. No, it's less important, but still, you want the vehicle to be comfortable while you drive it. One of the areas that the Jeep Wrangler typically falters with regard to on-road refinement is the fact that it has a solid front axle. The front left and right wheels are physically connected to each other. So when the left wheel impacts something, the right wheel feels it. That is a durable setup that gives the Jeep articulation and a lot of off-road capability, but also makes for an on-road driving experience that tends to wander a bit more and makes for steering that isn't as precise. When you're on the freeway doing 70, 80 miles an hour or whatever your freeway speeds are, it's a situation that you want to have both hands on the wheel. Like many modern vehicles, the Bronco has an independent front suspension, and that should make the steering feel a little bit more accurate, should make the whole thing be a little more responsive and better riding on road. So I can come out and say it, the steering is miles better than the Wrangler. This is a nicer vehicle to drive around town than the Wrangler for sure. Let's talk about this manual. It's definitely not going to be the most popular transmission among the Broncos, but it still deserves some attention because it's a 7-speed manual, and it's 7-speed because one of those gears is what Ford calls a crawler gear. You've heard crawler, you've heard granny gear, you've probably heard some variation of that. And what that is a super, super short sub-first gear ratio. So you aren't going to be moving very fast because that crawler gear is made to help you crawl over off-road obstacles in a smooth and controlled manner. Initial impressions on this versus the Wrangler Rubicon that we've owned for a long time now is, yeah, this is a little noisy relative to like a normal SUV, but it doesn't seem to be as loud as our Wrangler. I'll say the steering requires far less attention than the Wrangler does, and that should make this far less fatiguing to drive on long drives. In our Wrangler, we can't say the same thing about that. So that's a really nice thing to start out with, that this feels slightly noisier than a normal, SUV of its size, but that seems to be the only downside. This turbo 4-cylinder engine, the power band is okay. It's kind of like what you'd expect from a turbocharged engine. When you put it in a higher gear and you roll on the gas pedal, you can feel it work to life, and there's enough torque there to help push you along and get you going the direction you want to go. I will say, bizarrely, this is a really easy manual to like match revs when you downshift. Some sports cars get this wrong, and it's really easy to blip the throttle when you downshift and do that smoothly. That's a nice thing to have in your off-road vehicle, I guess. So when you're rolling up the stoplights and you can just brop on your downshift, it's a thing to feel cool about. I will say, one of the reasons we chose the manual to drive is because you would expect the 10-speed automatic, the optional transmission for both engines, you would expect that to excel on the freeway because it has 10 gears to choose from. You have this really wide spread of gear ratios. So you have, short ratios and lower gears so you can crawl over things at low speeds, and you have freeway optimized gears. This effectively has 6 gears for on-road use, so you don't have as many options, in fact, nearly half. So you would expect this in 6 gear to be a little, to not be as happy to work, let's say. It has fewer options for that power to go out, but this is totally adequate. So that's good on the manual if you're one of the few that decides to go with it, although for the rest of you with a 10-speed automatic, you're probably going to be even better. This interior also feels generally larger than the Wrangler. It doesn't feel like that seat's right next to me. I feel like I have more space to move around in. The visibility is okay. It's kind of a slab-sided vehicle and the windows and stuff look like that. I'm probably gonna take more time to figure out exactly how this lands with regard to visibility, but I'll say so far it feels fine. I'm generally somebody who's not sensitive to visibility issues, and that probably means I end up cutting a lot of people off, but I don't care. This feels fine. Let's talk about seat comfort. You can get cloth seats, you can get vinyl seats, you can get leather seats in the Bronco. These are the vinyl ones. They feel totally fine. On the lower trim levels, these are all manual adjust seats, and so far, I've only been driving this for a little bit. It feels totally comfortable, totally fine. I'm getting a lot of looks from people on the highway, and I think that just has to do with how cool this thing looks. This is a cool looking car. It might be one of the coolest looking cars that's come out in the past recent year or two. Let's quickly go down Bronco versus Wrangler. Steering feel. This is definitely better than the Wrangler. Ride quality, I think this is better than the Wrangler. Interior spaciousness, this is definitely better than the Wrangler. Engine responsiveness, that might need a little bit more evaluation because the Wrangler's got some pretty potent engines in it. I think overall though, the Bronco is very, very strong versus the Wrangler. Very strong as it relates to on-road driving and comfort. So this is like the second or third of like 16 different Bronco variants we're gonna get into, but that's okay because the Bronco comes in so many like sizes and shapes and flavors that you just kind of want to sample them all. This one is a Wild Track with the Sasquatch package, but you can configure the interior quite a few different ways. This one, for example, has the cloth seats with a really cool kind of like digital camo looking pattern on it. We had to put the roof actually back on because it was so bright out that it was actually ruining the lighting up. But yes, the Bronco, you can remove the doors and the windows. You can remove the doors and the roof fairly easily, and you can even store the doors in the trunk, which is really neat. But we're gonna talk about the interior right now, and just generally what it's like to actually sit in and occupy and use this space. Let's get the obvious out of the way. This is a Ford SUV, so you're gonna recognize some switchgear like the HVAC controller here, maybe even the shifter, some of these controllers here, but it's all very straightforward and very intuitive. One weird thing, or one thing that's slightly different that you may not expect, is that your window controls and your mirror controls are in here on the center console, because you can take the doors off. So you can see why they would lay it out this way when you can remove the doors. It just makes a little bit more sense. So talking about interior storage, you don't actually have a lot relative to some other vehicles in this segment with regard to small item storage. You have a wireless charging pad right here with USB and USB-C outputs. You do have wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto as well. That's nice. Couplers back here and a deep storage area back there. I think just by looking at it, it seems like more than what you would find in a Wrangler, but I think there are compact SUVs with more storage space. But hey, different SUV categories, right? Now, looking ahead, this flat looking dash actually looks really cool in person. It just is really impressive in the way it's laid out. I just think it's simple. It's not elegant, but it's straightforward. This has the larger of the two entertainment displays. I believe it's a 12-inch and the smaller one is like an 8 or a 10-inch. I've been in both. Both seem to get the job done. This big screen now shows actually the exterior cameras. There are a lot of exterior cameras on this. You have forward facing, rear facing, top down, forward sidewall facing, so you can see the left and right driver wheels, and the same goes for the reverse. So a lot of different adjustments there. Got a digital instrument cluster as well that relays pretty clearly everything that you're looking at. One thing that I think is really neat is if you look up here, there's actually space to mount a phone, a GPS readout, a GoPro. There's a lot of different things you can put here to do whatever you want with. In fact, there's like accessory makers that will put like a rail across here to allow you to mount whatever you want. And the neat thing about that is there's also a way to power everything because you have USB-C and USB hookups here as well. That's really cool. This Bronco that we're in right now also has upfitter switches right here for whatever accessories that you want to install. That's really nice if you want to run extra lights, I don't know, a refrigerator, whatever you want, you have that option to do that here. And then here's the sort of menu of all the fun off-road features you can get. This one has locking front diff, locking rear diff, the trailer turn assist. If you had the disconnecting front sway bar, it would be this button right here. This one doesn't have that. And then your stability control off. Overall, it is an intuitive interior to figure out, one that feels a little more spacious than the Wrangler, and one that I think works pretty well overall. The Bronco's cargo area features tie-down points that are cheekily labeled with lassos, and with the rear seats up, two-door Broncos offer 22 cubic feet of storage space, and four-door versions have either 35.6 cubic feet with the hardtop or 38 cubic feet with the soft top. That makes the larger Broncos more accommodating than the Wrangler at 32 cubic feet regardless of the number of doors it has. The Bronco features a host of electronic aids for off-road driving. Trail control functions like a slow speed cruise control that can be adjusted in half-mile-an-hour increments. But an additional trail one-pedal drive system goes further by automatically applying the brakes as you release the gas pedal. Doing so means you don't need to control both pedals simultaneously during tricky maneuvers on rocks, and it's impressive how smoothly this process happens. My favorite feature is Trail Turn Assist. When activated, this applies the brake to the inside rear wheel as you turn the steering until that wheel gets locked, and that effectively turns that tire into a point the entire Bronco pivots around. This not only transforms tight three-point turns on a trail into simple steering movements, but it also acts like a hilarious quasi-donut mode. Like the Wrangler Rubicon, the Bronco has a front anti-roll bar disconnect, but only on the higher-end Badlands trim level. Disconnecting the front sway bar gives you more articulation on uneven surfaces, but the highlight is that you can activate this version when the Bronco is already bound up, unlike the Wrangler, which you can only do on flat ground. Now we're finally heading off-road. I'm now in a Badlands Bronco with the Sasquatch package. And to be frank, there are so many packages and options for this thing. The best way to figure out what each one does and what makes each one important is to go check out the links in the description or visit edmunds.com/forward/Bronco. That'll keep you informed of all the details. So as I mentioned, this is a Badlands with the Sasquatch package, and the Sasquatch package is really the big news for the Bronco. It's something you can get on every trim level, and the important thing is it adds basically 35-inch tires, massive tires that give the Bronco more clearance, a lot of traction, a lot of off-road benefits. This one that we're driving right now also has the full suite of off-road hardware. We've got the disconnecting front sway bar, we've got the locking front diff, locking rear diff, and the trail turn assist, and we're going to experience what those do on an actual trail. We also have the doors and the roof off because, hey, that's what you can do when you have a removable roof and removable doors. And obviously what really helps out with taking the doors off is you can look out the side and see what your tire's doing on the trail as you're driving over. This particular Bronco also has a larger 12-inch screen, which also means it has the full suite of exterior cameras. And that helps a lot when you're traversing over hills or trying to find a trail, because instead of trying to peer over the hood, you can just look at the screen and follow that path. That helps a lot. The Bronco has two transfer cases. Both of them are available with 4 high, 4 low, 2 high, of course. The optional one that comes with the Sasquatch, that's one we're in now, has a 4 auto mode. For the time being, we're doing a little rock crawling demonstration, so we've got it in 4 low with the front sway bar disconnected and the rear differential locked. That's going to maximize traction and articulation for what we plan on doing. So for example, there's a little rock here that we're just going to put our passenger side tire on and crawl over at low speed. and they should have no problem doing that because of, again, the size of the tire and the clearance we have underneath. Simple as pie. When you have the Sasquatch package, you basically have slightly better clearances than the main competitor, and that's going to be like the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. As far as exterior clearances go, you know, the measurement before the vehicle touches the ground with something other than rubber. Adding the Sasquatch package makes big improvements thanks to those large 35-inch tires. As equipped, the Bronco's clearances generally exceed that of the Wrangler Rubicon, and by a good margin. And just this weekend, Jeep unveiled its own 35-inch tire package called Extreme Recon, which also features a 1.5-inch lift. A couple things that I call out as advantages in the Bronco is that you can lock the front differential and leave the rear differential open. That's a unique thing that I don't think any other off-road vehicle I can think of can do from the factory, so that's nice. And also the trail turn assist, which we showed earlier, experienced earlier, but we'll get better use of that. What I love is that it makes you able to take more narrow turns. It gives you more nimbleness on tight terrain. We were also again in the 4-cylinder Bronco. I've also spent time with the V6, and yeah, the V6 has more power, and that's nice. But what's nice about driving the 4-cylinder in the Sasquatch outing is to see how hard the engine would have to work to crawl. Is it down in any material way in performance that would affect this experience? And so far, no. What's nice about the 10-speed is you have, you know, really tight, really short ratios in the lower gears. So in low range, you can crawl around just fine. And we've been experiencing a couple different things, trying a couple different things as we've gone on some of these off-road routes, you know, leaving the diffs open when the instructors tell us to lock them, because, you know, you want to actually challenge the vehicle and find some of the limits on this manufactured course. We're able to do that. We've been able to do that. And it's nice to see, it's really cool to see, I should say, that when you turn on the features, they work exactly as advertised. You know, when you lock the front and rear diffs, you get a significant amount of additional traction. When you use the trail turn assist, it really increases the nimbleness of the vehicle. Also, the one-pedal drive setup is really neat because it basically gives you more control over your momentum of the vehicle, because it takes some of the work out of your hands. Instead of having to ride the brake and the gas pedal, you can just use the gas pedal, and then when you lift off the gas pedal, the brakes come on automatically and smoothly. And that means it's way easier to maintain your pace on the trail. But so far, hey, it's also nice to be able to like do this. Overall, when it comes to off-roading the Bronco, you could say, yeah, it does the thing. It is totally capable as an off-roader, especially with all the features and tools that you got at your disposal. It has a lot of traction, good clearances, seems to be totally sufficient on the trails that we've driven. I see no reason to complain about the off-road capability. Relative to the Jeep Wrangler, from my recent experience with the Rubicon, I don't see any downsides yet. Nothing's really come out yet, especially when you have the hey, look, deers.
Oh,
that's cool. Out in nature.
Deer along the trail here, just keep your eyes peeled.
Yeah, I love having the doors off. It's so cool. Mm-hmm. Like just being able to peer outside and see my steering line, see where I'm steering. That's so great. I love that.
This is why you buy the car.
This is absolutely a competitor to the Rubicon, and it's probably going to be stronger in a lot of areas, but of course we can only find out after doing a full comparison, so stay tuned for that. We're also buying one of these, as you might expect, so look forward to more about us getting one of these in our long-term fleet, where we'll use and evaluate it and drive it just like normal consumers would over the course of a year, hopefully longer. So what have we learned after our time with the multiple Bronco variants? Well, the 2021 Bronco appears to be everything I hoped it would be. It's got off-road capability in spades. It has a lot of cool customization features that you can play with to your heart's content. But most importantly, it also is civil enough to drive on the road that it really doesn't feel like a penalty or a sacrifice for all the off-road capability and benefits. I'm really happy it's out. I'm really happy I'm driving it. And I'm really happy that Edmunds is buying one. So stay tuned for more information about our long-term Bronco when it enters our fleet. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you liked this video. If you didn't, hey, that's totally cool with me. I'm all right. I don't need your approval. Check out the links in the description for more and visit edmunds.com/sellmycar to get an instant cash offer on the car you're trying to sell to afford this.